Hello families, welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story opens the door to a new world. Don't forget to subscribe, it would really mean the world to us. Now, let's begin. The village square was drenched in color that Saturday morning. Drummers beat their talking drums, women in bright wrappers danced in circles, and men clapped in rhythm. But behind the veil of joy, whispers slithered like snakes in dry grass. "Have you seen the bride?" one woman muttered, her gold earrings swinging as she craned her neck. I saw her, another replied with a chuckle. "Big as a market calabash. She will crush that poor boy in the night." The boy in question was not truly a boy, but a young man named Chike, slim, tall, with a face like carved wood and eyes that seemed always searching for an escape. He stood beside his new bride, Ngozi, whose body filled the space like a shadow that blotted out the sun. Ngozi's laughter carried across the crowd, deep, commanding, a laugh that seemed to warn, "This is mine. Do not question it." As the priest spoke blessings, Chike's lips curled in what looked like a smile, but his eyes told another story. They were eyes begging someone, anyone, to notice. But in Igbo land, a man's choice of wife was sacred, unquestioned. An old man leaned on his staff and whispered to his neighbor, "Handsome boy like that, and this is who he chose?" There is more to this story than we see. The crowd cheered as rings exchanged hands. Palm wine was poured, dancers shouted praises, and the marriage was sealed. Yet behind every cheer, another whisper rose. "Why her? How long will this last? Poor boy! Poor, poor boy!" The first morning after the wedding was strangely quiet. Roosters crowed, the sun bled orange through the windows, and the village stirred awake. But inside Ngozi's new home, the peace shattered. "Get up, you lazy stick of a man!" Ngozi's voice boomed. Chike stirred on the raffia mat, still half dreaming. A sharp slap landed across his shoulder. "Whack!" he gasped, blinking into the light. "Ngozi, it's barely dawn." Another slap, harder this time. "And so what? A man who marries me must work like 10 men. Stand up." Chike dragged himself upright, his thin frame trembling. He glanced at her, towering, arms folded across her chest like an executioner. I thought today we could rest, celebrate." "Celebrate what? Idleness." "No." She shoved him toward the kitchen. "The firewood will not cut itself. The goats will not feed themselves. Or do you want the village to laugh that Ngozi married a weakling?" Tears stung his eyes, but he swallowed them. A man does not cry, he reminded himself, even when his own wife treats him like a servant. Outside, neighbors paused as they heard the shouting. A woman fetching water from the stream giggled. Day one and already the lioness roars." "Poor Chike," her companion said with mock pity. "He has entered one chance." Chike, bent under the weight of firewood, heard them. He walked past quickly, head bowed. He could not let them see his shame. But deep inside, his heart whispered, "What have I done?" Weeks turned to months, and the routine never changed. Every dawn, Ngozi's voice thundered. Every morning, her hand struck his back, his arm, sometimes even his face. Not enough to break him, but enough to remind him of her power. Neighbors heard, children imitated. In the evenings, little boys would slap each other, chanting, "Wake up, Chike! Wake up, lazy husband!" The laughter tore into him like hidden knives. One evening, at the palm wine tapper's hut, his friend Obinna leaned close and sneered. "Chike, tell me, does she feed you with her fists or with her yam? Which one tastes better?" Laughter erupted. Men slapped their thighs, some shaking their heads in pity, others reveling in mockery. Chike forced a smile. "It is nothing. Just her way." But as he walked home, he pulled his sleeves lower, hiding the fresh red marks across his arms. Inside his hut, Ngozi greeted him with folded arms. "So you're coming back late now? Drinking palm wine when the goats are unfed?" "I was only—" A slap cut him off. "You will not shame me in this village. If you cannot live like a man, then I will shape you with my own hands." And again, the blows rained down. That night, lying awake on the mat, Chike whispered into the darkness, "God, why me? Why did you allow me to fall into this?" The silence answered him back. The abuse became the village's favorite gossip. At the stream, women giggled as they pounded yam. At least Ngozi's husband is useful. He cooks, he cleans, he washes clothes. Another woman added, "If only my husband would let me slap him once, I would have peace in my home." Children ran through the dusty paths shouting, "Lazy husband! Lazy husband!" chasing each other in mock play. Even elders shook their heads, murmuring, "How shameful! A man ruled by his wife." Ngozi basked in the attention. One afternoon, at the market, she boasted openly, "My husband, he obeys me with one clap of my hand. Not like these goats you women call husbands." The women roared with laughter. Meanwhile, Chike stood at her side, carrying her heavy baskets of yam, his face blank. But inside, shame boiled like hot oil. That night, he confronted her weakly. "Must you humiliate me before the whole village?" Ngozi scoffed. "Humiliate you? I am raising you. Without me, you are nothing but a thin stick blowing in the wind. I am your strength." He wanted to scream. He wanted to shout. But instead, he lowered his head and nodded. And so the village laughed louder. One humid evening, as the sun set red over the horizon, a young boy arrived at their compound, carrying a letter sealed in blue. "For you, Uncle Chike," the boy said, panting. Chike tore the letter open. His eyes scanned the words. His hands trembled. It was from Adiz, his younger sister. She was coming from the city. After years away in school, she longed to stay with him for a while before traveling abroad. A small smile broke across Chike's face for the first time in months. Adiz, his little sister who used to follow him everywhere as a child, who called him "my tall tree." But as he turned to tell Ngozi, her eyes narrowed. "So, the little city bird wants to perch here?" "She is my blood," Chike said softly. "She has no other place to stay before her travels." Ngozi's lips curled into a smirk. "Let her come. I will train her the same way I trained you." Chike froze. The smile vanished. He stared at his wife, fear twisting in his stomach. Adiz was bold, quick-tongued, fiery. She would never bow her head like him. He knew then, when Adiz arrived, this house would no longer be the same. The day Adiz arrived, the village stirred as though a small storm had blown in. She came down from the city bus wearing a fitted skirt, a crisp blouse, and shoes that clicked confidently against the dusty earth. Her bag swung over her shoulder, her hair tied in neat braids that shone under the sun. Children ran behind her shouting, "City woman! City woman!" while some women eyed her with a mix of admiration and suspicion. When she reached Chike's compound, she dropped her bag with a thud and embraced him. "Brother," she cried, "you've grown thinner than the broom I sweep with." Chike laughed nervously, glancing at Ngozi, who stood at the doorway, arms folded, her face tight with displeasure. "Adiz, welcome," Ngozi said coolly, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet. "You look different." "Different is good," Adiz replied, eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm here to see my brother, not to model for anyone." The tension sizzled like palm oil in hot fire. Villagers passing by slowed their steps, ears tilted toward the compound. Everyone knew this house was no longer quiet. That night, as they ate dinner, Adiz studied her brother carefully. His hands trembled as he lifted his spoon. Purple marks peeked from under his sleeve. Her eyes darted to Ngozi, who chewed noisily, unbothered. Adiz said nothing. But her mind was already burning. At dawn, the house erupted again. "Get up, lazy stick!" Ngozi's voice thundered. A loud smack followed. Adiz sprang up from her mat. She dashed into the room and froze. Her brother bent low, clutching his cheek, Ngozi's hand raised for another strike. "Stop!" Adiz's voice sliced through the air. Ngozi turned, startled. "This is none of your business, little girl." Adiz stormed forward, grabbing her sister-in-law's thick wrist before it landed again. "Raise your hand on him one more time, and you'll raise it on me first," she hissed. The room fell into a heavy silence. Chike looked between them, his heart pounding. Ngozi's eyes narrowed. "So, the city rat has teeth. Do you think you can challenge me in my own house?" Adiz leaned closer, her voice sharp as broken glass. "This is my brother's house, not yours, and I will not watch you treat him like an animal." For the first time, Ngozi's laugh faltered. But she straightened, towering, forcing a smirk back onto her lips. "Let's see how long your fire lasts." And with that, she swept out of the room. Chaik collapsed onto the mat, whispering, "Adiz, you don't understand." But Adiz understood more than he realized. From that day, war simmered in the compound. At the stream, women whispered, "Have you heard?" Ngozi's sister-in-law stood up to her. "Impossible! Nobody dares challenge Ngozi." But it was true. At meals, Adiz met every taunt with sharp words. "You cook like a servant, Adiz," Ngozi sneered one evening. Adiz smiled sweetly. "Better than beating my husband like a drum every morning." The neighbors chuckled under their breath. Chaik sat frozen between them, sweat forming on his forehead. In the evenings, when Ngozi barked orders, Adiz barked louder. "Chaik, fetch me water," Ngozi commanded. "No," Adiz shot back. "He has done enough. Fetch it yourself." Ngozi's eyes blazed. "How dare you? How dare you?" Adiz interrupted, her tone like iron. The villagers began to gather outside the compound at night, waiting for the verbal duels. It was more entertaining than the evening drums. Ngozi tried to keep her dominance, but Adiz's fire was relentless. And for the first time in years, Chaik felt a spark of hope flicker inside him. By the second week, the entire village had taken sides. At the market, women argued. "Ngozi is a strong wife. What is wrong with correcting a weak man?" "Strong? That is wickedness. Even goats are not beaten like that." Men debated under the palm tree. "If my sister challenged my wife like that, I'd throw her out." "Throw her out. Adiz is brave. Chaik needs her." Children chanted new songs. Adiz the fire, Ngozi the thunder, who will win the war? Chaik became the unwilling center of attention. He walked through the village with eyes averted, ashamed of the gossip swirling around him. But Adiz confronted him one evening. "Brother, why do you keep silent? Speak. Defend yourself." Chaik shook his head. "You don't know, Adiz. If I speak, the roof will fall." "Then let it fall," she snapped. "Better to live under the open sky than in a cage built by fear." He stared at her, his lips trembling, but no words came out. Adiz clenched her fists. She had promised herself as a child never to let anyone hurt her brother. And she would not break that promise now. Late one night, after Ngozi had gone to bed, Adiz sat with her brother in the moonlit courtyard. The night crickets hummed, and the cool air carried the faint smell of roasted yam. "Tell me everything," she whispered. Chaik's eyes filled with tears. He lowered his head. "For years, she has beaten me. Every morning. At first, I thought it was just her temper. But it never stopped. She mocks me before the village. She makes me cook, clean, even wash her clothes like a servant." His voice broke. "I am no longer a man, Adiz. I am a shadow." Adiz's chest burned with fury. She gripped his hand tightly. "You are my brother. You are not a shadow. She has caged you, yes, but even cages rust and break." He shook his head. "You don't understand her strength." "I don't need to," Adiz replied firmly. "Because I have my own." In the silence that followed, a dog barked in the distance, and the moon slid behind a cloud. Inside the hut, unseen by them, Ngozi lay awake, her ears sharp, her jaw clenched. She had heard enough. Tomorrow, the war would no longer be hidden within walls. It would spill into the village for all to see. The morning after overhearing the siblings' midnight talk, Ngozi rose before dawn, her face carved from stone. She stood over Chaik's mat, her shadow stretching long in the dim lantern light. "Wake up, slave," she spat. Her hand came down, but Adiz burst from her mat and blocked the strike. "I warned you," Adiz hissed. Ngozi's eyes flamed. "You dare touch me again? Dare?" Adiz pushed her hand aside. "You've bullied him long enough." Ngozi snarled but did not strike back. Instead, She leaned close to Adi's ear and whispered, "Fine. If I cannot break him, I will break you." And from that day, the wife's cruelty shifted. She began with small things. When food was cooked, she gave Adi's nothing. When water was fetched, Adi's portion was tipped into the sand. When chores were shared, she doubled Adi's load until her hands blistered. Chike noticed. "Ngozi, please." "Silence," she snapped. "If your sister wants to live under my roof, she must learn respect." But Adi's only clenched her teeth. "Starve me if you like. Beat me if you dare. But you will not touch my brother again." Ngozi's laughter echoed through the compound. "We shall see." Days passed. Adi's grew thinner, her cheeks hollowed. Still, her fire did not dim. One evening, when Ngozi left for the stream, Adi's sneaked into the kitchen. She roasted yam and shared it with her brother, who wept silently as he ate. "You'll get into trouble," Chike whispered. "Trouble has already found us," Adi's said. "At least let us have strength to face it." That night, as the moonlight washed the courtyard, Adi's sat close to him. "Brother, why don't you speak out? The whole village already knows." Chike shook his head. "If I speak, they will laugh louder. A man beaten by his wife. It is shame beyond shame." Adi's grabbed his hand. "No, brother. If you speak, you will take away her power. Silence is her weapon. Your voice is your freedom." Chike's lips trembled. For the first time in years, he whispered, Maybe you are right." Unseen, a shadow shifted at the window. Ngozi had returned silently and overheard everything. Her nails dug into her palms. Her sister-in-law was planting rebellion, and it was spreading. That night, after Ngozi stormed to bed, Adi's found Chike sitting alone under the mango tree. The moonlight revealed his thin shoulders shaking. "Adi's," he whispered, "do you know why I married her?" Adi's shook her head. "My debts. After father died, I owed the moneylenders. No one would help me. Ngozi came with promises. She paid off everything, but her price was me." His voice cracked. "At first, I thought it was love. But it was chains." Tears slid down his cheeks, soaking the dust. Adi's knelt beside him, her own eyes wet. "Brother, you were desperate, not weak. But she used that against you. She fed your body and starved your soul." Chike sobbed openly now, years of bottled pain spilling free. Adi's wrapped her arms around him. "Cry, brother. Cry tonight. Tomorrow we will fight." For the first time, he leaned into her strength. And far inside the hut, Ngozi listened in silence, her chest burning with a mixture of rage and something else she would never admit, fear. The breaking point came at the market. Ngozi strutted through the stalls with Chike trailing behind, carrying baskets piled high with yam and cassava. Adi's walked beside them, her head held high. As usual, Ngozi boasted loudly, "My husband obeys me more than a dog obeys its master. See how he carries my load. None of your useless men can compare." The women laughed, but Adi's fury boiled. She spun around, her voice sharp enough to cut the air. "Is obedience measured by bruises, Ngozi? Is strength proven by slapping your husband before dawn?" The market froze. Ngozi's laughter died on her lips. "What did you say?" "You heard me," Adi said, her voice carrying. "Every morning, the village hears your hand striking him. You boast of obedience, but it is fear. You boast of strength, but it is cruelty. Tell them, Ngozi, how many times have you beaten him before their children's ears?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ngozi's face twisted. "Lies. All lies." But murmurs rose among the women. "We have heard the cries. We have seen the bruises." Chike froze, sweat dripping down his back. His shame was now laid bare. "Enough!" Ngozi roared, snatching her basket. "This matter is between husband and wife. Who are you to meddle, city rat?" Adiz stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "I am his blood, and I will never stop meddling while you treat him like dirt beneath your feet." The crowd erupted in shouts. Some sided with Adiz, others muttered that a wife had a right to discipline. But one thing was certain, Ngozi's perfect mask had cracked. That night, Ngozi sat by the fire, her eyes burning like coals. She pounded yam furiously, each strike of the pestle echoing like a drum of war. Adiz sat calmly opposite her, humming softly, as though daring her to strike. "You think you've won, don't you?" Ngozi hissed suddenly. Adiz looked up. "This is not a competition, Ngozi. It's a fight for dignity." Ngozi's pestle slammed into the mortar. "You have turned the whole village against me. Tomorrow, we will end this." Chaik swallowed hard. "Ngozi, please." "Silence," she barked. "Tomorrow, before the eyes of the village, we will see whose voice is louder. Mine, or this city girl's." Her laughter rang out, wild and dangerous. Adiz leaned forward, her tone unshaken. "Then tomorrow, let the truth speak." The fire crackled between them, sparks flying into the night. And in that moment, the village knew, the battle was no longer confined to the walls of one household. Tomorrow, it would spill into the open, where every eye would watch and every tongue would judge. The sun had not yet risen when the drums began to sound. It was not festival season, yet villagers poured toward the square as though summoned by some invisible bell. Word had spread. Ngozi had challenged her sister-in-law to a public confrontation. By dawn, the entire village was gathered, women balancing babies on their hips, men with folded arms, children eager for spectacle. At the center of the square, Ngozi stood like a mountain, her wrapper tied tightly around her broad waist, her eyes gleaming with fury. She held a pestle in one hand as though it were a royal staff. Adiz arrived with Chaik walking behind her, his steps hesitant, his eyes downcast. But Adiz walked like fire given flesh, her chin lifted, her braid swaying. The murmurs swelled. "There they are. Ah, the thunder and the flame. Who will win today?" Ngozi pointed the pestle toward Adiz. "You come into my house, you eat my food, and now you disgrace me before the whole village? Today, we settle it." Adiz stepped forward, her voice carrying like a bell. "No, Ngozi. Today, the truth settles it." Gasps rose. Even before the first words were exchanged, the air trembled with tension. Ngozi lifted her chin. "This girl speaks of bruises and cries. Lies. My husband has never complained. If I am guilty, let him say it here, before you all." She turned sharply to Chaik, her eyes daring him to speak. The crowd leaned closer. Children hushed their chatter. Chaik swallowed, his throat dry. 4 years, silence had been his shield. To speak now would be to tear open every hidden wound. Adiz touched his arm. "Brother, this is your moment." His lips trembled. His eyes darted from Ngozi's glare to the villagers' expectant faces. And then, something broke inside him, not with fear, but with release. He stepped forward. His voice, at first hoarse, grew stronger. "It is true," he said. The crowd gasped. "For years, she has beaten me. Every morning. She calls me weak, lazy, useless. She slaps me awake, she mocks me before you all. I let her. Because I was afraid. Afraid of shame, afraid of debt, afraid of her strength." His voice cracked but did not stop. "But I am done hiding. I am done being silent. I am not her slave. I am a man." The square erupted, shouts, gasps, cries of disbelief. Some men lowered their heads in shame, others clapped in support. Adiz's eyes shone with tears, her hand gripping his tightly. Ngozi stood frozen, her mouth open, the pestle slipping slightly in her grip. For the first time, the voice she had silenced had risen against her. Ngozi roared, her pride wounded. "Lies. He speaks only because you poisoned him with your city tongue." But the villagers murmured louder now. "We have heard the morning slaps. We have seen the mocks. Even our children play games mocking it." Ngozi's face turned red. She swung the pestle into the dirt with a thud, sending dust flying. "He is mine. If I discipline him, it is my right as his wife." Adiz stepped forward, her voice sharp as lightning. "Wife does not mean master. Marriage is not a prison. If you must beat someone to earn respect, then you have none." The villagers erupted into debate. Some sided with tradition, that a wife could rule her home as she pleased. Others, stirred by Adi's boldness, shouted for justice, for dignity. The square boiled with noise. But above it all, Chaik's voice rang again. No more. Everyone fell silent. I will not live under fear another day. If marriage is chains, then I break them now. If love is wounds, then I choose freedom. The square went wild. Men shouted in admiration, women clapped, children cheered. Ngozi staggered back, her pride collapsing under the weight of his words. Ngozi dropped the pestle. It clattered against the ground. Her chest heaved, her eyes wild. You all mock me now, she cried. I gave him food. I paid his debts. Without me, he would be nothing but dust on the road. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, tears pooled in her eyes. Do you know why I struck him? Because I feared he would leave. Because I feared the village would laugh at me, the fat wife who caught a handsome man. Every morning, I beat him not to punish him, but to chain him. Because if I lost him, I would lose myself. The crowd murmured, some in pity, others in scorn. Adi's face softened briefly, but her voice remained steady. Fear does not excuse cruelty. You cannot cage love with fists. Ngozi sank to her knees, her wrapper loosening. Her voice broke. Then I have already lost. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some whispered prayers, others shook their heads. For the first time, the great lioness of the village was small, broken, exposed. The next morning, no slaps rang through the compound. No shouts, no insults. Only the quiet song of birds greeting the sun. Chaik stood outside, the first rays of dawn touching his face. For the first time in years, he felt the air fill his lungs without weight pressing on his chest. Adiz stepped beside him. How do you feel, brother? He smiled faintly. Like a man reborn. From inside the hut came no sound. Ngozi remained silent, broken by her own admission. She had become a shadow of the thunderous woman she once was. The villagers, meanwhile, carried the story like fire. At the stream, in the market, by the palm wine hut, they spoke of how a thin man found his voice, how a fiery sister lit the match, and how a lioness crumbled under her own fear. Chaik lifted his head high as he walked through the village. For the first time, children no longer mocked. Men clapped his shoulder. Women greeted him with respect. He was no longer the beaten husband. He was the man who had broken silence. As the sun rose higher, Adiz placed her hand on his shoulder. Remember, brother, sometimes it takes just one voice to end years of silence. And together, they stepped into a new dawn. The end.